it's Monique here, independent psychometrist registered with the HPCSA and clinical psychology master's student at SMU. And I'm finally bringing you the psychometry video. In this video, I'll be discussing everything about psychometry, from what a psychometrist is, what psychometric measures are, what you can do once you're qualified, how to get qualified, and I'll be discussing my own personal experiences. So that said, let's get started. Let's first talk about what a psychometrist is. I asked this question on my Instagram a little while back, and I had some interesting answers, and there are some misconceptions of what psychometrists are and what they can and can't do in South Africa. So we're going to be discussing this majorly in the video. But a psychometrist is an expert that administers, scores, interprets, and reports on psychometric assessments. Okay, and what is a psychometric assessment? A psychometric assessment is a scientifically developed tool that measures people's ability and behavior styles. So psychometric assessments are used to help companies finding the best suited employees. They are used for career counseling. They're used for team building. They are used for development and better understanding of yourself. So as a psychometrist, you can, as I mentioned, administer assessments and use them for development or employment selection or career counseling or something like that. But you can also go into psychometric assessment development. And overseas, they call them psychometricians. Okay, so they are more the people that measure the bias, the validity, the reliability, more the statistics side to psychometry. So a lot of people have this idea that psychometry is all about assessment development. It's not all about assessment development. It is a part of psychometry. So if you are interested in going into assessment development, that's one part, or you could use the assessments to help others develop or help employers find the right candidate for their company or help somebody with their career in some sort of way. So there's two kind of routes that you can go into as a psychometrist. What kind of personality would suit psychometry? So a psychometrist works with the assessments, yes, but they also work with people. And in my personal experience, majority of the time I'm actually working at my desk. So I think that's important to discuss, that it's mostly working with the assessments, mostly writing reports or scoring their assessments, but there is the side where you do the feedback with either candidates or people that you do career counseling with. So you need to have a bit of empathy, especially when you're doing development, because when you're doing development, you're obviously measuring people's strengths and weaknesses, and it's not easy to tell somebody that they're not very good at something or it's a weak area that needs to be developed. So you need to have empathy in being able to give feedback and discuss results with the testee. Then you also need to be very detail orientated. So it's very important to be accurate and detail orientated, because if you're not, it can definitely skew the results, which could have a major impact on a person if their results are incorrect. So detail orientation and accuracy is very, very important. Although nowadays, I must say, with all the new technology and the new assessments, it does make a psychometrist's job a little bit easier because the scoring is sort of automatically done, which also makes the results very accurate. There's no room for human error. Then I think it's also important as a psychometrist to be able to work under pressure. There is often a lot of very quick deadlines, especially for companies. Some of my clients that I've done employee selection, I've had to work very, very, very quickly, because obviously they want that person to get into the company as quickly as possible. So if I do an assessment on 8 candidates, I need to write those 8 reports and do my recommendations as quickly as possible. So the ability to work under pressure is very important as a psychometrist. All right. So those are just some qualities I can think of from my experience that are really important to have as a psychometrist. If you're a very detail-oriented person, you don't mind writing a lot, and you like to work with people, then psychometry might be something for you to consider. How do you qualify as a psychometrist in South Africa? I think this is the question that everybody's been wanting to know from me. Let's start off by saying that in order to be a psychometrist, you need to be registered with the HPCSA. And how do you get there? Okay. Well, firstly, you need to have an honors degree in psychology with psychometry as a subject, and you need to get 50% for that subject. Please note I'm speaking for UJ's application in 2017. This is when I applied. This is what I went through. Please check in with the university to find out if anything has changed in the meantime. But basically, when I applied, I needed to have 50% for my psychometric module, and I needed to have an honors degree in psychology. So then I applied for the B-Psych equivalent program in psychometry. And during that program, you need to do a 6-month internship or 720 hours face-to-face practicum experience. Okay. Once you've done that, and that is logged and signed off by a supervisor, you qualify to write the HPCSA board exam for psychometry. Once you've written that exam, you need to get 70%. Yeah, you need to get 70% for that exam in order to qualify as a psychometrist. On the note of accessing forms, I remember back when I applied, I couldn't just get the forms off the UJ website so easily. I had to send an email to the psychometry or the industrial psychology department in order to get the forms. So I'm not sure if it's still like that, but if for those of you who are maybe struggling to find the forms online, email the industrial psychology department at UJ to try and find the facilitator. If you can get the facilitator's email address so you can get those application forms. I don't think they're readily available online. Perhaps they are now, but back in 2017 when I applied, they weren't. So let's talk about what a psychometrist is not allowed to do. And I really want to discuss this because it is a major misconception that a lot of people have with psychometry. Psychometrists are not allowed to use projective measures such as the TAT or any psychological measures that are used to diagnose. Okay, so to diagnose mental health or anything like that diagnoses depression or anxiety or PTSD or anything like that, it's not allowed. It's only allowed for psychologists. That takes a little bit more training. Okay, so no forensic assessments or neuropsychological assessments are allowed. This is in the South African contents. Overseas, psychometrists often are allowed to use these measures, but it is not allowed in South Africa under the HPCSA regulations. All right, so basically, most of the work that a psychometrist does is more in the industrial psychology side of things and educational when it comes to career counseling, the career counseling side of educational psychology. Let's quickly talk about the application process at UJ. A lot of you wanted to know what the application process is like. So I briefly mentioned that you need to access the application forms from the industrial psych department at UJ. Once you've got those applications form, you fill them out. You have to write a letter of motivation. that you then send through to UJ. Once you've done with that, you have to write an entrance exam. After the entrance exam, you do psychometric assessments. I think it's a personality assessment, an attitude assessment, and a cognitive assessment, as far as I remember. And once you've done with the assessments, you go for an interview. So in my year, they chose 40 of us, and I think there were about just over 200 applicants. This may have increased, I'm not sure. But yeah, so there is a little bit of competition to get into psychometry. It is not as bad as masters, but there is some competition. And the cost of the program is quite expensive. But it's I think it was like 40,000 Rand. So I feel that's really important to know, that the price of the course is quite pricey. So make sure that this is something you really want to do. And even though it's a backup for some of you, it's likely to be a backup to masters, just make sure that this is something that you could do for the rest of your life. Because should you, and I hope you do, but should you not get into masters, you need to think about possibly doing psychometry for the rest of your life. So let's talk about where you could work as a psychometrist. I mean, that's your ultimate goal. Where are you going to work? And a lot of companies hire psychometrists. You could obviously work for one of the big psychometric companies or psychometric assessment providers like JVR Psychometrics, Thomas International, Psytech. There's lots of companies like that you could work for. But any company that does employment selection or development, which is most companies, require an industrial psychologist, and they often hire psychometrists as well. So you often work alongside an industrial psychologist. You could also work for a school or university doing career counseling, or you can go into independent practice. That's what I did. And in independent practice, you can be creative. You could do employment selection, development, team buildings, career counseling. I even did assessments for couples that are about to get married. I would do assessments so that they could learn more about each other. So yeah, there's quite a variety of career options out there for you once you have qualified. There are also a lot of psychometrists that are working for psychologists, but there is a fine line to working for a psychologist, because you could be lined up administering assessments that are not ethically allowed. All right, let's talk about my experience as a psychometrist. I got a couple of questions asking me about my personal experience about psychometry, and I'm going to share that with you now. The first thing I got asked was, why did I choose psychometry? The truth is, I chose psychometry because I wanted to be a clinical psychologist. I wasn't getting into the master's program, so I thought that psychometry would be the best option. When I got rejected, I applied for a PGCE and psychometry as backups. I got accepted for both, and I chose psychometry because I thought it was the one that would most likely get me into the master's program. And I think psychometry definitely helped me get into the master's program, but there are a lot of avenues that you can take that could help you get into the master's program. Where did I do my internship? I did my internship at JVR Psychometric. So I was very fortunate to do my internship there because I got great exposure to employment selection, employment development, team buildings, career counseling. I got a lot of exposure to assessment, developing assessment tools. That's everything that JVR does and more. And the great thing is, because it's a development company, obviously, and they help other companies develop their employees, I was developed so much from discovering my weak areas and my strengths to improving things like my presentation skills. I had to give presentations and they would give me feedback on these presentations. It was a really phenomenal place to do my internship. I learned a lot from JVR. What do I like about psychometry? I really enjoy giving feedback. I really love the career counseling part and helping people find their careers. I love watching people develop themselves and improve themselves. That part of psychometry I really, really enjoy. What part do I not enjoy? I do not like assessment scoring. Sometimes I do feel I spend a lot of time at my desk, and I don't really like the little bit of stats that you do. Sometimes it can be a little bit repetitive. So those are the things I really don't like about psychometry. Something I didn't expect and what I want to mention to others is once you're done qualifying, it does not stop there. You have to continuously, like psychologists do CPD points. So that you have to do workshops and maybe assessments, accreditations, etc., to keep your registration going. With regards to assessment accreditation, this is also something I didn't know. Some of the assessment accreditation is really, really expensive. Like really expensive to be accredited in that assessment, and you can't use the assessment until you're accredited in it. So some assessments don't have any accreditation. Anybody can use it, but others you do need to get accredited in it. When you do your internship, you do get some accreditation, but afterwards it's all on you. I would thus recommend that working for a company before opening your own practice. I know I opened my own practice first, but that way there's the potential, the possibility for the company to send you on psychometric assessment accreditation trainings. So that's something I really didn't know. And yes, it's quite expensive to get up and going as a psychometrist. It really, really is. And that's something I wish I knew beforehand. I really do, because even opening my own practice, it was tough. It was tough in the beginning because I didn't know the financial strain I was putting myself into. So that's something I would like to definitely let you know. Well, that's that for now. I think I've shared quite a bit of information on psychometry in South Africa in this video. If you would like some more information, please drop some comments below. Send me an inbox so that I know what I've perhaps missed in this video, and if there is enough comments or demand for another video, I will make another video. Keep safe, everyone, and all the best with your week. I hope that it is a successful one. Bye-bye.